does this thing work? Not for Linux. Let's see. Well, this is a new setup, so I don't really know how to put the chat up like I used to. I switched to Linux because I'm a nerd, so. Can you guys hear me? Sound better? Oh, wait. Okay. Let's do that. Oh, that sounds better. Like this. The problem is I'm trying to set up a way where I can hear myself when I talk, but I don't know how to do it without getting like double feedback because of the way that it's capturing the screen. So I'm gonna suck it up for now. Monitor off. Right, this should be better-ish. I almost just closed out of the streaming software. That wouldn't be good. There we go. Thank you. Let's get this all set up. Make this floating. Is there a way to pop out the chat in this? That would be cool. For now, I'm just gonna do that. There we go. That works-ish. That kind of works, right? I'm doing it. Okay. Heyo, how's it going? How's it been hanging? How's your week been? My week's been decently busy with work and such, and also getting this computer set up. I used to previously have a laptop that I basically did everything off of, and I had that laptop for like 8 years. And I replaced the battery in it 3 separate times because it started swelling, and lithium-ion batteries are scary. And so I finally relented and got a desktop, just like a cheap used one. It actually has a decent graphics card in it though. And I also bit the bullet and switched to Linux because it's just nerd rite of passage. You gotta do it at some point. Oh no, don't let them explode. Yeah. I have been like, I'm the person, you know, in like my family and friends that they're like, oh, you're the tech person, you know, the tech stuff. And every single time I see somebody's like phone or laptop or something start to expand, I'm like, you need to fix that. You need to do something. And they're like, what do you mean? They're like, I just thought it got wet or something. And I'm like, no, that's a bomb. That's a bomb right there. I know it doesn't look like it, but that's a bomb, and you need to figure that one out. I've definitely seen a battery explode in someone's face. That's sketch. How did that happen? Let me do that so I can see most of the message. This actually works pretty well, honestly. Good afternoon, Polygon Pilgrimage. How you doing? Yeah, it's... most of the time people are fine, but that's not really something you want to gamble on. That's not something you want to just go like, oh yeah, of course. Everyone's taking a battery or two to the face, right? Soldering and the wires grazed when she moved her hand. Ugh. Working on Audio Manager at the moment and doing full-time work. Well, you know, don't overstress yourself. Have fun with it, you know. Audio Manager. You work in Unity, right? So I don't know. In Godot, they have like auto loads, singletons that just kind of run throughout all of the different scenes. So I'm just imagining it's something like that. Yeah, you should. I'm gonna have to check out your streams and see your stuff at some point. Slowly but surely, that's how it goes. There is no other way, unfortunately. So, I have been bouncing around projects. I've been trying to do work off stream and then just sort of come on stream and show it off and do more like interactive stuff rather than just sitting here and splitting my brain down the middle. So this is what I have done on... I don't have it because I transferred machines. Oh, hey, Fullbox, how's it going? But I have basically a list of projects that I want to get done. So let's zoom in a little first. So my projects, one of them is a sort of artillery game inspired by pocket tanks, you know, worms, that kind of stuff. The difference is that I wanted it to be a bit more strategically focused, more physicsy, however much physics I can cram in there. Yeah, TL Draw or Excalibur, yeah. I like open source stuff, and this is a really good way just to show things off. There were some things I wish were in it, and maybe one day I'll go through and make my own version or add on to this one because I'm pretty sure it's open source. But it's very handy and it's free, and you can't beat free. Yeah, so that's this game, and also I figured if you're gonna make something like this, you gotta put wizards in it. You know, magic seems to fit very well with this whole thing, so that's kind of this game that I'm working on. I've done a lot of different iterations and stuff on it before, but this is me just kind of starting from the beginning. I'm realizing just how much stuff I left on my old computer, because I had a GIF of an old prototype I did where I made a tile map, and then every time that something went off, it would basically delete the tile map and replace all those with physics objects. So it was kind of like a pseudo-destructive environment thing. It was really cool. I mean, if there's an app that pay me to use it, that might be better. That's called a job. I don't know if you've heard of those. They're okay. Some are okay, some are pretty bad. I'm gonna be honest, this is a mixed bag, but you can find those. If you go around and people are like building houses, you can ask them and they'll probably pay you. You have to do some stuff, but you know, that's part of the app, right? What is a job? They suck, but they do help pay bills. Jobs used to be something we had to do, and now they're something we do because there's a weird rules written around with money. They're still keeping us warm, just in a different way. But yeah, so I went through, and what I got hooked up in like the couple of days was I have these two different players. These are just my selection of spells for now. I got a cool little does that not work in this OS? Yeah, oh, okay. Usually in Godot, you can hold Alt and it will keep selected what you have under your selection, and then you can move it around and stuff. But in Linux, that defaults to the window, so I can't do that, which is a little unfortunate. But I can do this and just lock all of those, and then I should be able to grab it and move it around. So this is just a little VFX I did. I kind of like it as like a little mystical thing where it leaves behind a trail that like moves and then stops dead. So the idea is that it would, you know, start over here and then it would like soar through the sky, and you would be able to see that trail behind it. It would move at a consistent velocity, but I'm, you know, not able to reproduce that with my mouse. So yeah, made that. I have somewhat of the UI hooked up. So you can click on things and... Is it transparent background? Oops. I got disconnected from chat? Why? Stream's still going, right? Oh, it's struggling. It's struggling. Yeah, ooh, that's not good. I don't know how I can fix this right now. Seems okay from this side? Okay. Well, I'll just keep going then. Yeah, I don't know why this has a transparent background, but whatever. It goes. So I have a thing where I can just select each of these different things. For now, I've had it just pop up over here, what I'm selecting, so I can see. Each of the spells has their own internal power. So that the idea is that, like, rather than it being kind of like a very static, like, turn, you know, left player goes, right player goes, one spell at a time, you get these time windows. And so you can do whatever you want in like 1 second, and then that second plays out in real time, right? So it's like a planning phase and then an action phase. And I kind of want it so it's like you can mess with other people's spells. Like the idea of like someone shoots out a fireball and they're like, oh, I'm just gonna hit an attack on them, and you just detonate it in their face, and you can use your energy to like make it explode. I just downloaded and started to look at Firebot. Seems really powerful. I just need to spend time to understand it. Yeah, I like it so far. There's a lot of fancy stuff you can do with it. and it just takes time to build that stuff out. But yeah, I also have it so that I can select a spell and it actually remembers that. So the right player has the first spell selected, the left player has the second spell selected. Eventually I'm going to make this whole thing move to be more, to reflect more of what it is actually selected on. So rather than having all of these different things, it would be like, you know, only the options pertinent to the spell. Hey, Maybe Tall. Glad you're here. Thanks for doing your rounds. I appreciate it. It's going well. I just started it up. I'm changed my entire computer and also operating system, which never has any issues associated with it. So running Linux, I'm doing Mint because I just decided to bite the bullet. But yeah. So that was pretty much the simple progress I got on this so far. This is another one of the games, so it's more of like a top-down action RPG thing. One of the things I wanted from this is like physics-based combat. So the hands are simulated physics objects and they're being pulled back to their position, and then the attack is just like launching toward the position. This is also transparent background. What the heck? Let me fix that. No, don't allow. Reset. Whoa. So yeah, I really like this sort of physics-based system just because it looks cool. I gave him a little trail so you can see it a little better. God, it's still transparent. I don't know what the deal is with that. Okay, we'll put it down here. I also made it so that these you can like punch through. Can I do it over here? Does that look better? Yeah, so you can... Nope, that doesn't work. It's really funny because I had transparent background on, but it didn't work when I had it on my other computer. It must have been like a Windows thing. So that setting hasn't been changed. It just now works because I'm on a new OS. What a great effect. The trail sells it for me. I know, it looks really cool. I've played with this a lot. Another thing that I'm playing with is I want it so that you can equip things. So you can see that this is a fist, so it's very light and it moves pretty far. This moves less far because I'm holding the rock and it actually has weight to it. You know, so that'll be kind of like the way that you do weapons and such, is it'll actually like work physically with the whatever it is that I'm thinking of and can't say. It'll work physically with whatever you're holding, and it will actually do proper physics calculations. So you can have like weighty war hammers and light and fast daggers and stuff. And then I just made it so you can somewhat dig through this. I've realized that this is a harder thing than it looks like because for some reason the Godot, the things I'm using are called rigid bodies, and they don't actually tell you where they collided, they just tell you if they collided. So it's kind of hard to get like the tile map position to break things down. So I'm having to figure some other stuff out. Get a yo-yo weapon and make it hit super far. That's one of the things that I thought of, is like I've had a lot of interesting ideas for weapons in this game. Is like you can have a player, and then something that is really underrepresented is you can have like a flail or like a throwing ball, right? So you can have just like this tiny ball, and actually spinning it around will give it speed, and then you can use that to like, you know, you can gain speed and actually hit people with it, which would be kind of interesting different way of playing. A raycast could help. Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I need to move it to the hands, because right now it's attached to the player since I was just doing it real fast. But you can see a little bit, there's a raycast right here, and that's kind of what is happening, is it's detecting when the fist hits something, and then if there's something at the end of the raycast, it deletes it. Like I said, I need to move it to the hands because sometimes you can do stuff like this where you get it like at an angle and it's not quite there, you know? There's a Diablo game like that right now, the name eludes me. If you remember, let me know. I think the combat will be interesting. I have a lot of ideas about, so this is just like a quick noise generated cave system, but I kind of want it to be like you're exploring a cave and there's like an actual somewhat stable ecosystem of people, you know, different people, different NPCs with different goals, and they're like, you know, actually intelligent AI. I want it to be so like if someone walks up to you and you're way too strong, they're smart enough to like, ooh, I gotta run away, or like, you know, maybe they're if they see you have a ton of money, they'll like try to sell you things. Like I like that AI aspect of it, and I like a lot of the simulation techniques. So that's kind of what I'm going for, is trying to make this sort of like interesting top-down ARPG thing, but give you different ways to go about it. You know, I don't want it to just be a fighting game. I want it to have a broad appeal, you know. There's something that there's a paper out there, and it's called the mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics of play, I believe. Also for short, MDA. And they talk about all of these different reasons why someone would want to play a game. So you have like competition, you have like cooperation, you have expression, you have abnegation, which is a weird one, but fun. And I feel like a lot of people don't look at games and design for these actual end goals. They're like, I want to make a shooter. And it's like, well, shooter could be Portal or Call of Duty, right? Like, you don't really know, that doesn't explain too much. So I kind of wanted to design a game that hit like as many of those as possible and just kind of play around with that, you know, just kind of see how people react to that. Because I think there's a lot to be said by giving people breadth rather than depth. I helped my friend with some bullet physics, and it seems like the same problem. We used a raycast with a link set to the velocity of the object, so it would raycast to where it would be the next frame, basically using dead reckoning. That is smart. That makes sense. You might enjoy this. So in Godot, they have the solver here, and it has this continuous collision detection thing. If you want things that are moving fast and have more accurate collision. Well, they have an option here that's cast ray, which is really great, but I think I might have found a bug with it, because as you can see, my right fist, even though it's casting its shape, it shouldn't be going into the wall, but it is. My left fist, which is set to cast ray, will not actually go. It detects that it's going to collide with a raycast, and then it sets its position to the previous position without actually like getting as close to the wall as possible. So what ends up happening is over here it works semi-normally, and then as I start facing the wall, it goes, no, I don't wanna, which is really interesting. So yeah, I have to submit like an issue for that, or like talk to the people and see what's up. But that's one of the only reasons that I'm having to do this kind of jank system, is because their inbuilt one seems to be busted. Am I able to get the position from that and adjust the hand to the position? I don't think so. When you do this, it's you have to get contact count or get colliding bodies. Because it's a tile map, the tile map's position is 0, 0, right? It's static. But there's not a way like there is in character bodies or what was previously kinematic bodies to actually get the collision point, which is sucky a little bit. So yeah, that's the main problem I'm running into. You read the docs on it? You don't got to, but I appreciate it. Yeah, it's like I said, there's plenty of workarounds. It's fun. You could just have your fist not collide with the wall, do the raycast thing maybe Tal mentioned. You don't even need to predict the future position. You could just use the current and previous position to make the ray. Yeah, I mean, ideally what you would want is you would want it so that when the fist, I can't do that anymore. When the fist goes to hit the wall, it'll be here. Its next position is here. What you want is that it just moves as close as possible. I could like predict the position or do the previous and next one, but I don't want the hands getting stuck in the wall, right? Like that causes a big problem if you're running around with items, because you know, it's okay if like you get like a sword stuck, like let's say you have like a spear that's too wide for this hallway and it gets stuck on there, and then or maybe if it gets too far away you drop it or whatever, right? But you can't do that with your hands. You want your hands to like stay on the body. You can't have them so it's like they get stuck in a wall and then you're just kind of pinned there. So that's my biggest problem, is I want to try to prevent it from entering collision as much as possible, which is where the raycast thing would be helpful. And this was something I was dealing with sort of at the end of when I was doing it, so I just put in a cheap and easy solution. It's a feature, yeah. The game is now the walls eat your hands extravaganza. There you go. Manage your hands. That's what I'm always saying to people. They don't manage their hands. I think you could just throw hands willy-nilly. You can't do it. Yeah, so I think that is pretty much... That's what I worked on in the main sort of 2 games that I'm bouncing back and forth between. I don't think I did anything crazy. I just spent all yesterday like trying to import all of this code over to here and get GitHub set up and properly. Oh yeah, there's this. It wasn't working previously. Let's see if it's working now. No, it's not. But basically, this is kind of a prototype for how I am going to try to handle AI sensing. Instead of having it like do a collision circle around it and like detect everything, or even just do like raycast, I'm having it basically just use a LiDAR system where it'll spin in a circle and then mark down the things it notices. I previously had it where this thing was moving away from walls and towards the green stuff. I don't know why it busted though. Collision detection is slower but more precise and misses fewer collisions with small, fast-moving objects. Raycasting and shapecasting methods are available. As far as I could tell, shapecasting does nothing. I have tested, at least in this situation, I have tested turning them off and turning it to shapecasting, and I don't notice a behavior in the physics. I don't know if it's because the impulses are larger than they expected or larger than the collision resolution can handle, like the speed at which it's moving, but yeah, I haven't been able to detect that. Yeah, so this should be getting -1 when it's black, which is the walls, and then +1 when it's green, which is the treasure, and then 0 the rest of the time. But it's not actively pushing anything. Oh yeah, this is a cool little thing that I made a while ago, because I keep messing with tile maps and stuff because I like them. But it lets me take these images and stuff, which I'll just create them with noise. And so this is just a noise texture that I scaled up so it's blocky, and then I gave it a color ramp so it's either black or white. And then I have this tile map, this one right here, which is a tool script, and all I do is I point it at the sprite, I point it at the tile map, and I click this button and it draws everything onto the tile map. So that's just an easy way that I get a lot of that stuff done, because I've messed with this a lot. Checkpoint, point valuation, checkpoint, memory size, target position, impulse, apply central impulse. That's very cool. I think IRAD dev does something similar for his game, generate all the terrain like that. Yeah, it's very handy. One of the first like algorithms I messed with that I really liked, I don't know if I have it anywhere in here. This is a version of it that doesn't work anymore, I don't think. No, it's not it. That's game jam stuff. I have too much stuff in here, by the way. I don't know if you noticed. This is a mock-up of the hands thing that I did a while ago. Anyways, I'll just pull it up. So yeah, there's this thing, which is a pretty popular cellular automata algorithm. It'll just take random noise and it will turn it to pretty naturalistic looking caves. I think my internet's still crying. Hey, my stream. So yeah, you can see it goes from like however many steps you do. I think they're doing this in processing, so it's good for that. But you can see it just like slowly makes it a more naturalistic shape. And I messed with this quite a bit. Nah, I didn't import a lot of my projects over, so I don't think I have it. I used to do it in this way where I would get an image, I would run it through a viewport, and then I would run a shader on the image and the viewport, so it would constantly be sending data back and forth, which was like a fun way to do it through the GPU, but I believe that's broken now. It starts yelling at me when I pull up those old projects. Yeah, I can't find anything in the docs about how to get info from the collider after it collides. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Rigid bodies are kind of designed to be just like background physics objects. They're not really meant to be directly controlled. The kinematic body is for that, but I don't want to program all that physics myself, so I'm gonna do it my way. Ooh. You can use the custom integration. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna end up doing. It's just something I gotta play with. Right now, I'm just kind of happy that I got him to like run around, you know, be able to pick up things, stuff like that. The next thing I'm probably going to implement is the inventory, just an easy inventory system. I have like the base here, but I haven't done anything with it. One of the things I want for this game is the idea to integrate forces, I believe this is what it's called. Custom integrator, integrate forces, yeah. One of the things that I think would be fun in this game is to have like items have like real management to them, so everyone has like a limited size inventory. And those items would be, you know, like each of those items would be impactful, right? Like that's how you would get passive buffs. That's how you could switch weapons on the fly if you want to do that. And so that's kind of my idea. And I also like the idea of being able just to like throw things. So if you're really scared and you're trying to run away from somebody, you can just turn around and throw everything in your pack, trying to block them. Yeah, there's some fun ideas, but I need to prototype a lot of it out. I always get stuck trying to make the AI because I want it to be so fancy, and I'm like, maybe one step at a time. When you collide with a tile map, it passes the RID. The RID can be used to find the tile collided. Can it? It can be passed to find the specific tile? I'll have to look into that. I need to get going, gotta get a haircut in a little. We'll definitely pass by in the future. Thanks for stopping by, Fullbox. I appreciate you talking and stuff. Let me... Beam. Tile map, get chords for body RID. Get chords for body RID. I have not seen that. Returns the coordinates for the tile for the given physics body RID. Such RID has been received. Get collider ID. Huh. That's a very good idea. Question is, can I get that? So if I get colliding bodies, returns a list of nodes, and then I may be able to get like node, and then like, is there a get RID down in one of these? Probably object. Get instance ID? One of the issues is that it doesn't return a collision object. So that collision.get collider ID doesn't work for rigid bodies. The only way to detect it is you get the bodies you're colliding with, right? I might end up just having to use character bodies or whatever so that I can use all these collision stuff. I just haven't played around with it. You're like me, you get stuck on a problem real hard. I'm trying to get out of that habit of like, this could work, I could do it. It's like, yeah, there's also a lot on my to-do list I want to do first though. So I'm not super stressed about it. I'm sure I'll figure it out later, but I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty until I've gotten a lot of, gotten a lot further in prototyping the rest of it. Body shape entered passes RID. I don't want it to enter. Yeah, that is something you could do. No, I appreciate the help. You know, I that is definitely something I haven't looked at and probably could work. It's just like, you know, do you want to, me personally, it's like, I think to myself, do you want to spend all this time making it so that the hands work a little bit better, or do you want to get it so it's like moving, right? Do you want to get it so it's like you can pick up things, put them in your pocket, go talk to other NPCs, you know, stuff like that. And I spent a long time struggling with the hard problems, and it's like, maybe give myself some easy problems. I gotta remember, I do too, you know, I get that, I do. It makes a lot of sense, but I'm trying a new way. I was gonna do something here and I forgot. Oh yeah. One of the things that I've been thinking about that would be kind of fun for Twitch stuff is like because my computer's a bit more powerful now, I can probably run Godot as an overlay in the back. One thing I thought of would be doing like a stream avatar thing where every person in chat gets their own little person and they move around like at the edges of the screen doing whatever, and you can give them commands to do different things, you know, fight, like maybe there's like a random treasure that spawns and everyone has to race to get it. I've always wanted to make like a stream avatars that's better, because I feel like the one that they do now is like the bare minimum and then they charge for it, which is whack. I need to, there's a couple things I want to set up for the stream. So I want to set up a like current projects. Well, yeah, let's do it this way. So I want to set up like a current projects list. And I don't know if this should be like always displayed or on command. Another thing is I want to have an option for like if people want to sign up to like help with things. I don't know how to put this, sign up to help project. But like I'm totally down with collaborating with people, but I feel like there's not a great way where people could be like, oh, that's a cool project, I think I could add to it. I mean, like, you know, you would have to like send a DM or something, but like I want to put like a page there for that. Another thing I want to do, let me do this because I hate the sloppy lines. I want to have like donation bars with specific goals. So I like the idea of funding creation of like royalty-free music. Royale. Like just funding, like just slowly building up just like having a little thing where people can throw donations and stuff, and then after it gets to a certain amount, I'll just commission like some royalty-free music that could be used on streams, or like it's a, you know, public domain thing. You can use it in your games if you want. I like building up that collection of free stuff. Same thing with art. I don't know. I don't know too much about it, but I don't know. Maybe like art assets or something. I think that would be cool. Just having a way to like fund sort of that thing, and then people can vote on like what kind they want and stuff that might be useful for them. One thing I'm also trying to do, when I say sign up to help for a project, like you could do GitHub stuff for that, but I'm also talking about like beyond that. Like I want dev stuff, and dev expands beyond code, right? If somebody's like, oh, I want to make art for this, I want to like translate, you know, write dialogue, you know, any of that kind of stuff. Hey, I want to make a side game that ties into it or something. Like, you know, you could do design, you could do audio, you could do art, you could do tons of stuff that's not just contributable on GitHub. As good as GitHub is for code, it's not built for that kind of collaboration. Either that, or I'm just obsessed with doing everything on my own. One of the two. Another thing I want to experiment with on stream is sort of experimenting with different types of content. Like a lot of the game... Hello? I don't know what happened there. When I middle click, it does something weird. What? Excuse me. Does it just like copy whatever's in my... Oh, that's cool. So you can use copy, and if you middle click, it'll just paste down whatever's in your clipboard and then make it its own node to move around. That's actually really helpful. Another thing that's really helpful this tool has, a laser pointer. public domain, different types of content. But yeah, I want to experiment with, I think a lot of game dev stuff is oversaturated with particularly the coding aspect of it, and particularly the technical aspects of it. Secondary to that is probably marketing, but I want to experiment with like diving more into like game design stuff, which is the stuff I like. I think interviews are really fun. I like the idea of like crowdsourcing ideas, not necessarily for a specific solution, but just getting people's ideas and like what the, you know, mass majority of people who aren't technical, who aren't like deep into the space of like game design, like what are they looking for in games in their like wildest dreams, right? Yeah, I always find when I talk to people about games, they're like, every once in a while someone will be like, oh yeah, I like Call of Duty, I like Fortnite, I like Stardew Valley, I like Baldur's Gate, and then every once in a while they'll be like, you know, there was a game I played decades ago, and it was a weird online flash game, or it was some old forgotten Super Nintendo game, and it has this really interesting design and crazy stuff, and I'm like, why aren't we hearing more of that? You know, everything's like, I'm gonna do a Metroidvania, but it's also a platformer, and it's like, there's a lot more ideas out there, you know. There was a web-based game that was a 1 pixel-sized ship fighting other 1 pixel-sized ship and shooting 1 pixel-sized projectiles. Yeah, that sounds cool. You know what else it sounds really good for? A Twitch overlay, right? If you want to have like a little Twitch game where people can actually play it like a game and it's not just like, you know, wandering around stuff, that sounds like a really fun thing where it's like you could see little battles at the edge of the screen, but they don't take up much, you know? Maybe 1 pixel's a little small, but something to play around with. There's another streamer on here, Spiridon, I don't know how to say his name. Which Spiridon. He's making this like really bare metal, like he's using WebAssembly and Zig to build out the backend for a game. And it's based off this old Nintendo game he talked about that was really cool. It had like economic systems built into it as well as like fighting and stuff. But he's done a lot of really cool stuff. We talked a lot about how games have really gotten wasteful in their space and their efficient, and it's like old games used to be incredibly small and incredibly efficient. Like the first Pokemon games are smaller than a picture, than a PNG and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff we can do with that, but because we can, there's a lot of games that just go up and up and up in terms of how much space and waste they're willing to use, you know, hundreds of gigabytes of like, you know, random stuff. So he's trying to build stuff very close to metal, very efficient if possible, and do it like correctly. And then he also has integrated it with this like Twitch run game that you can do. So you can see, you know, they're putting in commands over here, and it's a whole ships fighting thing. I don't know everything about it, but it's really cool. I like what he's doing. You can't help but dance when the Tetris music comes on. Very neat, yeah. I believe there's a shout-out command, right? No. Let me shout him out. Yeah, he's a cool creator. The only reason I don't watch him is because I tend to watch Godot devs. Yeah, that makes sense. I like a lot of the Godot stuff. A lot of people, there's a lot of really good programmers out there, but I'm like, at a certain point, it gets too into the weeds for me. Flash shoutout, does that work? No, yeah, I just totally missed it. Did that work? Why didn't that work? Am I not allowed to do that? Slash shout out. Do I have to do at their username? Spirit on FL. I don't know. I think it might just be broken because my internet is crying. One of the things that I gotta solve with this is that the way that my house is set up, so let's see, rectangular, this is where the office is, and over here in between another full room is where the router is, and I've only ever used laptops which have really good Wi-Fi cards, but the house is old and it doesn't have like a lot of wiring and stuff, so I don't know, I gotta figure out something to get to run a wire over here, because I had to get like a USB like extra antenna in order to actually even connect to my Wi-Fi through here. So it's pretty bad. But yeah, I'm gonna probably try to run a cable alongside the house here and then pipe it into here, because there's already like a hole in the wall from an old coax cable. Something that was super funny to me was right here is where the router is. Over here is where all of the connections to the house are from the pole, except the coax cable, which was over here. So I'm guessing at some point they pulled the coax over here and then they moved it over here because they wrapped it around the entire perimeter of the house like this. And then somebody came over and they were like, hey, what if I just moved this over here? What if I just did that? So that was much better. Whenever I go for a walk, I look at all of the power lines and I'm like, man, what a mess. What a mess we have left ourselves with. I don't even know if I'm using this anymore. I am, yes. It worked for you? Did I just shout out like 4 times? Because I don't see it on any of my things. Yeah, I don't know. I just think my internet's crying right now. First feel one. Am I spelling that wrong? It's one of those words that I'm looking at and I'm like, I don't know if that has ever been a word, but my brain says it is. One of the things that's surprisingly annoying about building this is I kind of wanted to do the old style of just like having most things be run through its own UI panel. It's surprisingly annoying to try to get everything syncing up properly. First of all, I had to make this collision shape so that I could click on things or near things and it would select them. I could probably do it so that it only matches the collision shape, but I kind of don't want those things to be tied together. And then also just having it so that each player has its own memory of like what spell it's using, and then I have to, when I click on it, it sets the UI to match what the player has, and then afterwards, when I change the UI, then it matches what the UI to the player has. And it's just like kind of a bit messy, but I don't really know if there's a better way to do it. Signals. Yeah, signal bus could be good, but I always find signals to be a bit weird because there's not a great way to trace them. You know, like if you're making references all over the place, it can get kind of messy, but at least there's like an actual path where it's like pointing to something else. Whereas if it's a signal, you kind of just have to notice that there's like, you know, the same signal name over here, and then like this one is connected. And that gets even worse when you're using a signal bus, because then it's like this has the signal and then this is emitting the signal. It's good for certain things, like it's good for something where you want like all things of a type. You pass parameters in your signals. Yeah, it's definitely something that you can do. It's just not something I've messed around with enough to worry too much about it. I probably will end up changing this stuff to signals, but I'm just trying to get something working first. I wish there was a better way to do this besides moving a collision shape and then waiting 2 frames, but I don't know. What other Godot streamers have you seen around? I haven't seen too many of them. Do you have any other like people to follow or check out? All right, I'm gonna take a little bit of a break. I want to learn Godot, so curious your suggestions. Yeah, I know there's like only a couple people who do tutorials on YouTube, but I haven't seen too many Godot streamers. Yeah, it's just kind of the nature of it. I think too many things to learn anyways. Yeah, always. I think the Godot is pretty small, and also just the amount of people streaming game development is still kind of in its infancy. I'm going to take a small break, and then afterwards I'm going to talk about game design, and specifically I'm going to talk about this thing over here, Abnegation. Let me... Yeah, so let's see what they define here. Our submission. Games as a pastime. I do wish there was better like headings in Excalibur. But yeah, I want to talk about specifically designing games as a pastime, because I feel like that is something that's kind of underlooked at in the whole scheme of things, right? There's a lot of people designing games in the traditional way where it's an experience, like a small, like you go from, you know, you do the hero's journey, you go to the evil tower, you beat the evil, you know, villain, and then you move on. But there's a lot more things that are being designed like this, where it's designed not necessarily to have an end, but just to be something you do, right? So yeah, I'm gonna take a bit of a break. I'll be back in a couple minutes. I'm back. Okay, so I'm just gonna be kind of rambling because that's what I do. So let's get into this. I think is an interesting topic because if you look at the history of games, right? Turn this back to white. Let's make it a large. If you look at the history of games, you have very clear things that inspired, you know, inspired things to come. So you have things like Metroid, you have things like Castlevania, which, you know, became their own genre. And the whole goal of this is, you know, beat the end boss, basically. Or like / complete the mission. So these very clearly have something similar, something in common. They became their own genre, right? They merged themselves to be a Metroidvania, or rather people merged them. And as much as this was the goal, the way you went about it was kind of the core of Metroidvania. And this also came down through, like, the design of it came from... hey there, I'm from the Discord. Hey, what's up? Nice Zelda tune, thanks. Yeah, I like some of this music in the background. It's just game chop stuff, which I should randomize a bit more. But yeah, we're talking about game design. I'm worked on some code stuff, and now I'm just going to be chatting idly about game design. Specifically, I'm going over games as a pastime. I think a lot of these older games are very inspirational to new games, you know? Like Hollow Knight is a good example of something where they took this specific genre and they took it as a very deep inspiration. And Hollow Knight is a game sort of old times, and it's going more towards this like completionist attitude of like, you gotta collect everything, you gotta go through all the challenges and explore everywhere. And this is what I would call an adventure game. As much as Metroidvania is, you know, tied to the history of it, I don't think it accurately describes what you're going for here. When you're playing Metroid, or you're playing Hollow Knight, or you're playing Castlevania, you're looking for an adventure. Wasn't chat earlier today talking about how the terminology screw things like Metroidvania are confusing to outsiders as is intrinsically referential. Yeah, I agree. Metroidvania, I think, is one of the worst examples of it, but this happens with a lot of things. And lower the music a little bit. Oh, I didn't mean to hit that. No, stop it. Well, I don't know if that was a tad bit. I messed it up. Let's go to 30. So other examples of like how messed up this stuff is like a shooter game, like a first-person shooter. This cannot be many things, one of which is Call of Duty, and one of which is Portal, right? It's an explanation of what is in the game mechanically, not why you're there, right? 35 to 30 is usually my range. Sounds good now. Thanks, I appreciate the feedback. Yeah, another example is like, oh, don't do that. Rogue, which then inspired rogue-like games. And then that inspired roguelite games. So all of these intrinsically referential things are really terrible to understand why you're actually there. If you look at like movie genres, the movie genres are like comedy, you're there to laugh, you know, romance, you want to see some smooching, you got action, you have You can tell I don't watch a ton of movies. Thriller. Even that one's a little on the edge. Mystery is a good one. But they tell you why you're there. And that is where this sort of paper comes into play, which is a formal approach to trying to categorize why people like games. That's a very good romance description. You know, I do my best. So this paper aims to describe things in terms of mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics, which is essentially we have the how. I don't really know the dynamics. This would be the why, though, right? So I don't really know how to describe dynamics in this. Let's look how they do in the paper. So dynamics. So mechanics describe the particular components of the game at the level of data representation and algorithms. Dynamics describes the runtime behavior of the mechanics applying on the player. So I would say probably this is the how, and well, link to paper. Yeah, I should send that. There you go. So let's just do it this way. We got how, and then we got, this is going to be like the nitty gritty is what I'm going to call it. So the aesthetics are why people play games. The dynamics are like how those things come to be, and the mechanics are like the actual coding and stuff of it. And these aesthetics are meant to describe things much closer to how movie genres do versus these sorts of bad genre titles. Let's see what they have listed on the paper. So they have, I'm trying to select a very few of these things, not the whole paper. You know, I appreciate that the keyboard shortcuts, sometimes they do go a bit crazy. So these are the different aesthetics, the different reasons why people play games. Let's bump this up a little, and let's move this whole thing down. So why people play games? You have sensation. Games as a sense pleasure. This is really easy to see in things like sports, right? You can very easily see that sports provide something that other games cannot. Dungeons and Dragons, you know, any video game, board games, they're not going to give you that sensation like sports does, right? That is the ultimate of sensation. Fantasy is the opposite. Games as make-believe, exploring fantasy and stuff like that, you can see that in tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. You can make up anything, you know, whole world. Narratives, games as drama, you can see that in visual novels very specifically, but this is also a lot of cutscenes, right? Like, you kind of just intersperse a movie into the middle of your stuff and you get that sort of narrative. Challenge, this is going to be every sort of like esports fighting game, you know, stuff like that. You want it to improve your skills at something. Fellowship, this is like MMOs are pretty good for that. Couch co-op, like party games, I should say. Discovery, this is where you're going to get your things like Zelda, Minecraft. You have that idea of like, you don't know what's coming around the corner, and that sense of adventure from exploring an area and seeing new things is very, very impactful. Expression, self-discovery. Expression, you can see that in things like The Sims. People are doing it not necessarily for a goal, but just because they want to do it the way they do it. Stardew Valley, I would say probably falls into that. But even things like, you know, Baldur's Gate 3 is another one of those. Any anything you can do multiple ways and your way of getting through the problem is unique to you. And then games as pastime, this is one of the things that I think is the most underrepresented. But honestly, things like Fortnite, you know, people aren't there just to play the game anymore. They're there to like hang out in a weird sort of mall space kind of thing. There's events, there's different things to talk about. It's a bit intensive now. There's a lot more going into like trying to get people to exist in these spaces. VR and like the metaverse is very much like this, where they want you to spend time in it and do all that stuff, as well as just like idle games, you know? They just want you to come back and do stuff forever, basically. And things are kind of moving towards this more, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it. We're moving away from these set experiences, you know, where it's like everyone who's going through it is going to have the same experience. You can see stuff like Assassin's Creed was that. That was a very popular one, if I can spell it. Old Call of Duties were like that. They had the multiplayer aspect, but that was secondary to the campaign. You have a lot of what's it called, like Metroidvanias, I would classify under that. Old RPGs, like Dragon Quest and stuff like that. They were kind of meant to give everyone the same experience and have something to talk about, and that's kind of moving into now these how would I describe it? Sort of like, I don't know, I don't want to say forever experiences. I'm just gonna put that for now because I can't think of a better way to put it. But like, you think about like new Assassin's Creeds, and they're giant world you're meant to spend hours and hours in. The new Call of Duty is all about like battle pass stuff, right? It's about having you come back over and over, new seasons of content. You have like what are those things? MOBAs, right? These continually updated fighting games that you come back to over and over again. Fortnite is another one of those where it's just meant to hook children on gambling. But yeah, yeah, sure. CSGO, I think, did like gambling stuff. But yeah, it's this idea that games are starting to move away from the old sense of like, you discover whatever you can and you go and you have that set experience, to, okay, we need them to exist as long as possible in this space. And I think there's ways to do this that aren't gross. You know, most idle games try to just get you hooked. Gacha games, that's right. Gacha games are trying to be a pastime. It's not necessarily about getting to the end of the characters. It's about, we're always going to add new characters and you're always going to want to come back and get more. And it becomes more of a hangout thing, you know? I think there is a way to design things that is not this gross, you know? Like, for example, you could use the gacha mechanics, and you can use it minus the what's it called, monetization, right? One of the things that I always thought would be interesting is having this gacha mechanic just not be monetized, you know? Because it essentially, if you extrapolate it out, have you watched any of the people make games content? If that's a specific brand, then no. They did one on Roblox and COD skin training. Roblox is a great example. And COD skin training. I didn't even know that was a thing. It's a YouTube channel. Yeah, I don't think I have. But gacha mechanics without the monetization, you can actually see that in roguelikes. you know? The idea of you starting from a different place, like most roguelikes have this experience of you you start out sort of as like a weak character, and then you have either the choice to continue as a weak character, or you have the choice to get some stuff that changes things, right? Yeah, it's like children gambling, but since the gambling happens on Steam, it doesn't technically break terms of service, but yeah, it makes Valve a lot of money. Yeah, no, I've actually talked to younger people, and that they're like, oh yeah, I lost a ton of money and it's gambling, and I fully understand that, but it's fun, you know? It's just like, they don't really have that ability to stand on principle, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it. Yeah. It's crazy, a lot of that stuff. But I think there is a way to do these things more interesting. Like, the gacha mechanics, I think, is a really interesting thing, because a lot of roguelikes, they start like this, right? Where you're normal base character, and then you just go through and you either get stronger or you don't. And it's like, that's kind of the intrigue. Is your life easier, or do you have to go through some harder challenges? It kind of provides the noise level needed to get over some of the challenges of the game. You know, it's like letting you play through the game with all the good stuff makes people want to play through it with less stuff. It's kind of an interesting thing. You could use gacha mechanics though to change this up so that instead of it being like you get some stuff and you know, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, you could have it start out where maybe you're a strong character, and also maybe you're a weak character, you know? Like, you can have it come from the opposite angle, and then the challenges remain the same. Yeah, I play Egg Inc., which is an idle game, and it has ads, but ads only benefit you, and you can choose to never engage with them. Because, yeah, folks got to make money, particularly in mobile. But I appreciate when the choice is there. That is... yeah, that's kind of how the state of mobile games are. Mobile games, I think, are a whole other topic of stuff that people kind of ignore when they shouldn't. Like, the idea that mobile games should be free is insane. Like, you'll pay $70 to, you know, buy the latest, you know, new iteration of I Shoot Things, but someone asks you for like $2 to play Stardew Valley and you freak out. Like, it's kind of weird. I think the whole mobile games industry has been dragged down by a lot of their bad choices. You know, it's like, it's weird that people expect mobile games to be A, of lower quality, and B, 100% free for no reason, like as if no one ever made them, you know? It's kind of like the weird trap we've fallen into on YouTube, where people are like, they expect to be able to see people making content for free, and they just kind of accept ads as a side thing. Ads are costly. They take your time, they take your attention. The whole thing with Twitch now is like they're starting to do it in a ratio, which is rough, you know? It's like, and that we're moving more and more towards that, where it's not going to be like you have to watch a 2-minute ad and then you can either see a 10-minute video or a 2-hour video. It's like, no, we're going to get our percentage of your time, and I would rather pay money than time. But yeah, that's a whole other topic. One thing that actually does this little thing pretty well is Call of Duty DMZ is what they called it. But basically, you can go into the game, you can extract weapons, and then you can use those to start the next game. So you have that very base weak character that you start from, and then you go and you face the same map, the same sort of challenges. You know, they're not different. They're not roguelike, you know, they're not changing that much. But you come back, and sometimes you come in as a strong character, and that feels really good, especially because you have this loop of like, you come here, and then it comes back to here, right? I can't really do this with the tools provided, but... So this is sort of the method behind Call of Duty DMZ, and it's a really decent replacement for the roguelike loop. So yeah, that's a way to use these gacha mechanics without monetization. And this is a way to do games as a pastime. You know, roguelikes, I would say, are moving towards games as a pastime. The amount of hours that people put into like Binding of Isaac is crazy. It's not something that you would consider a set experience, right? It's not like the old games where it's like you're going through and you're going to beat the Elite Four and the trainer at the end and everything is great and now you're done, right? It's this idea of like people want to spend time in their games. They want to have it as a reliable thing to do, you know, as a pastime, right? As a pastime. So these sorts of things are basically, you know, roguelikes got found and they were explored to death, but this sort of version really hasn't been explored that much. I would say Call of Duty DMZ does it in a very light way, a very way, you know, like very much just because like they could, not really intentionally. Call of Duty tends to do a lot of things unintentionally, in my opinion. Same thing with a lot of these, you know, excuse me. Same thing with a lot of these sorts of games that are meant to just like pull you in forever. Like, I think Assassin's Creed went very far into, and a lot of different AAA games went very far into this RPG route. So they found out that like RPGs, you know, there's a lot of fluff, right? A good example, I think, as blasphemous as it sounds, is Baldur's Gate 3, where most of the time you're not necessarily playing the game. Like, if you total up someone's like hundreds of hours playthrough, how much of that is split between like walking around, gathering loot, talking to people, checking every cave. I think the bloat of AAA is fascinating, not in that they can't be big, but genuinely have some super strange decisions put into what adds value overall. I agree. I would say the core of Baldur's Gate 3 is D&D combat, right? And that is a realistically small portion of it. There's a lot of stuff that's valuable about preparing for combat and stuff like that, but there's also a lot of it that's just empty space, you know? And so a lot of games move to that, you know? A lot of games are trying to become more RPG-ish. Like, do I need to see the flyaway hairs on a model? No, it adds so little, but someone had to spend weeks doing it. Yeah, and that's kind of more of the culture of games are a conglomerate of multiple different things, of, you know, coding, they have design, they have art assets, they have audio, and the part that we are the least good at is these two, is this one. You know, this is the one that is very hard. Coding can be kind of weirdly revered in a lot of tech industries, so they end up kind of just pushing art and audio really hard. Like, VFX artists have gotten destroyed in the industry as the last like 10 years. There's a story about the Life of Pi. I don't remember it totally, but there was the Life of Pi had a tiger in it, and it's like a main character. So obviously you have to have a VFX studio do all that, right? And I don't remember the whole thing, but they got like halfway through production, halfway through production, and then they had to they got notes back from the main studio, and they said redo it. They said redo the tiger, it doesn't look right, we don't like it. And that is terrible. That is horrible. And the way that this was structured, they couldn't really argue with him, and it came out of the pocket of the VFX studio. It came out of the VFX studio pocket. This bankrupted the company. It fully just, it made them fold. After they completed that, they had nothing else to do. And then afterwards, the studio that made Life of Pi, they accepted an award for it because they made money on it. You know, they thanked the VFX studio in their acceptance award, and they said sorry they couldn't be here. They neglected to mention they couldn't be there because they bankrupted them, which is crazy. VFX is terrible. It's crazy. VFX is tragic. It's been a long time since I've read Life of Pi. It really should have been stylized. Also, poor Sonic. I wish it had been weird looking Sonic so bad. Have you seen Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers? There's a movie that came out that was Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, and it was a kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit mixed action movie. I thought it was pretty funny. You might like it, but it talks about ugly Sonic in there, which is funny. But yeah, back to the actual topic at hand. People figured out that RPGs are a lot of fluff, and they sort of moved a lot of things to that. The new Assassin's Creed did that. There's a lot of like RPGification of shooters and stuff like that. Destiny is kind of where that fits in. And Baldur's Gate 3 is also that. And so this is kind of one of the ways where we're moving from like set experiences, like old RPGs, and now it's like everything's got to have a post game. Everything's got to have after action, you know, something to do. Come back and grind to level 99 and then go beat the super boss who's incredibly hard, but he's just an old boss who hits harder. And it's this idea of like they're just trying to lengthen everything as an experience, but they're not really designing for people who want to play it as a pastime. I've been playing Yakuza, which is a very funny franchise because it started out as a brawler, like a beat 'em up. Also a terrible title for a genre name. It started as a beat 'em up, and then they wanted to do a soft reboot of the franchise. Oh. So they wanted to do a soft reboot of the franchise. So then they moved it to a turn-based RPG, very intentionally inspired by Dragon Quest. Like they make overt references to it in the game, which is a very funny thing to do with your title. Because, by the way, this was 0 through 6. This is the first 7 entries, because they did go back and do a prequel called 0, were beat 'em ups, and then 7 and 8 so far have been turn-based RPGs, of which the studio's never made a turn-based RPG before. But these games have put a lot into their maps and their world and their lore, and they want you spending a lot of time there. So part of the Yakuza franchise is there's mini games everywhere. You can play darts, you can play claw machine games, you can play old Sega games, like literally just old Sonic Fighters, Virtua Fighter, stuff like that. You can do golf, you can do bowling in some of them, you can do a ton of different things. Let me see if I can find a list of Yakuza mini games. Karaoke, Koi Koi, which is a card game, a Japanese card game, Mahjong, Master System, which is an emulation, bowling, blackjack, batting cages, cabaret clubs, poker, pool, pocket circuit, a Mario Kart ripoff, drone racing, shogi, which is Chinese, I think, chess, like, you know, is the closest you can call it, table tennis, woodcutting. Like, there's an incredible amount of side content in this game. Which is clearly they're trying to make this designed for games as a pastime. This is entirely tangential. You don't know about the concept of ma in storytelling. I do not, unless you're talking about my mother, in which case, don't. But this is what, there's also like crafting and stuff. This is what, here, let me put, also, crafting, collection, side dungeons. This is what it looks like to design something for games as a pastime. This is what it looked like to have it so designed for people to return to often and explore and spend, or let's just do this, and spend time in. You know, there's a lot of things where it's like there are side missions and stuff that tie into some of these things, but most of it is just kind of there for you to have fun with, you know? There's no one really begging you to play the claw machines, but they made a whole claw machine simulation. It's equally as frustrating as the real thing. The concept of Ma, it comes from Studio Ghibli. It's the falling tension for visual storytelling. Falling tension. Like the end of a story, like the epilogue sort of wrap up. Is that what you're talking about? I don't know what you mean by falling tension. But yeah, I think just because I've played them both recently, comparing Yakuza to Baldur's Gate 3, you see a game that was designed to be long versus a game that was designed to be a lot, you know? It's a very interesting comparison. And I think this sort of idea needs to be put into more things. We can't just, you know, the games industry is so saturated that the idea you could just roll up and make a new Metroidvania and it, you know, without putting tons and tons and tons of time into it to make it like excellent, like that game that I just talked about, Hollow Knight did. It's hard to do that, you know. It's hard to make a Hollow Knight. People made Metroid and Castlevania because just no one had done that before. People made Hollow Knight because they were trying to do what was done before better, and that space is going to get harder and harder. But you need to start thinking about what it is you're actually designing for in your games. You know, Hollow Knight fits really well into discovery, into challenge, but it doesn't really fit a lot of these other things, you know. The spaces between intense moments. So like in Spirited Away, when they take the boat to the train after the fight, it's a smaller, quieter moments to punctuate the more dramatic ones. I think games could use it more. I agree with you. There's a thing in music where as people get better at music, they want to shove more and more into songs and stuff. And a lot of people who are more experienced in that, a lot of people who are like experienced composers and stuff, they talk about that their favorite music learns how to use silence better than anything else. Not necessarily putting everything everywhere, but it's about the quiet moments. It's about the distance between the top and the bottom, you know? Like, we always see the sort of classic model of like, this is how a game should look. You know, we have... Can I do another one? Am I allowed to put another? Nope, whatever. This is how games should look, right? This is how the classic story structure is. You come down here, and it's the rising tension, and then the climax, and then the falling tension. And overall, as an overall trend, I don't think that's a bad idea. But there is also the idea that perhaps you could use it in a more fractal way. You know, maybe the rising tension itself has its own version of a climax. You know, maybe it comes down and then it plateaus and then it does it again and then it comes over here to the climax, right? So you have this sort of fractal thing going on where each moment can be interesting without it taking away from the overall game itself. You know, having multiple things, not just waiting for the one big thing, can be a different way to do it. I don't think everyone should aim for an average. They should try to figure out what looks best for them, what makes sense to them. But yeah, I think there's a lot of design here to explore, and that's kind of what I've been rambling about. Probably, maybe. This is not exhaustive, by the way, this list. It's kind of just what they put in the paper, but there's a lot of people who have already tried to express other things that people come for. One of those is cooperation. Fellowship makes sense as like a social framework. You know, you want to hang out with your friends, but you know, what if you want to play like something like A Way Out? You know, where it's you and one other person. I think quote unquote cozy games, which is another terrible title. Terrible genre titles. Beat 'em up, shoot 'em up, rogue, /light. First/third person shooter. Cozy. Yeah, those are terrible. But I think one of the reasons why a lot of cozy games are underrepresented and why there are not a lot of them is because people don't actually think about games in a way where it's like they could sit, you know, they're thinking about them in the framework of old things like Metroidvanias, of like, what's the goal, what's the beat the end, what's the complete the mission. And it's like cozy games are more expression and submission and discovery. You know, it's not a lot of this, you gotta have everything have as a challenge and everything has narrative drama and fantasy. I do think it's inherently harder to reproduce that type of tension in games due to the medium itself. Setting up triggers and scenes and all that when the player can simply walk away messes with the flow. Yeah, I think it's less about providing... It's less about making a lull in the action and more about providing a way for you to leave the action, right? This is one of the things I really like about Yakuza is there's a really intense story in it. It's serious. It's like a hard thing. Like people get killed, people cry, people get really emotional in it. But then that's juxtaposed with all the side missions, which are very, very silly. So rather than having this action flow where it's like all of this action and then there's a dip in it and then it goes back to the action, what you have is a path that has outlets, right? So if I'm in chapter 1 and there's some serious stuff going on and I'm like, wow, that's too much for me, I'm gonna go take a break. I'm gonna go do some side missions. I'm gonna go play darts. I'm gonna go craft something. I'm gonna go do whatever. And then when I'm ready, I come back in and the action's still there, right? Time, you cannot control time in movies. It goes by at a very specific rate. You can in video games. Gotta finish Yakuza. I started at 7 and now I'm like, I have to play all the other ones. It sucks. I'm like, that's so much time, but I got to. But I think this is the key to what you're talking about, that sense of I feel like this is one of the few games I've seen do that. They need to give you an outlet to the action. That's the point of side quests, not to give you more stuff to do. It's not God of War style where it's like, I'm reformed, but I'm gonna go murder a ton of zombies, and then once I'm done with that and I have the best armor, then I go do the story. It's like, no, there's a reason for you to leave besides just getting stronger. You know, it's not just movies intercut with a little bit of button mashing. But yeah, that's where I'm going to end it for now. I've been talking for a while, my brain is going, but this is, hopefully this is interesting. I think it's interesting to think about. I think more people should think about this stuff, and I think this is the only way you do get to see the differences and stuff like that. As much as you might like Studio Ghibli movies, you can't design a game the same way you do a movie. You can take inspiration from it, and you can find different ways to adapt it to the medium, but it can't be one for one. But yeah, I'm gonna end the stream. You go to your meeting. Thanks to everyone for hanging out. I guess I'll find someone to try to raid. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. Actually, I'll wait till... Oh wait, Sockhouse is here. Let's do that. Alright. I think I started the raid. But yeah, I will catch y'all later. Let me make sure I actually did this right. Good conversation. Yeah, thanks for doing it. Thanks for being around and talking through it. I like talking through this stuff. Well, my connection is unstable. There we go. I'm already raiding. Never mind. Alright, I don't know how this works. Raid now. I did it on my phone. It didn't work properly.